Welcome to another episode of Sports Night in Auburn. I'm Jenny Jordan.
And I'm Harrison Tarr. After a busy week in Auburn athletics, we have a lot to talk about, including Auburn's debacle against Mississippi State, season-ending injuries on the football team, the beginning of basketball season, and much more.
The Auburn football team returned to Jordan-Hare this past weekend after coming off a poor performance in a 20-3 loss on the road against the Texas A&M Aggies. The Tigers welcomed the 5-4 Mississippi State Bulldogs, where the Tigers went into the game as 5.5-point favorite. The Tigers' offense was clicking on all cylinders to begin the game as they broke open a 28-3 lead over the Bulldogs with just a few minutes remaining before halftime.
It was then that the Bulldogs would go on to score 40 unanswered points and suck the soul out of every Auburn fan in attendance. Here's Eagle Eye's Colin Beiersdorf on the Bulldogs' 25-point comeback to upset the number 17 ranked Tigers.
Auburn football returned home this week to play Mississippi State following a tough loss on the road to Texas A&M. The 18th ranked Tigers were defeated by the Bulldogs by a score of 43-34 following a 25-point comeback that included Mississippi State scoring 40 unanswered points. Multiple Auburn wide receivers had over 100 yards. Kobe Hudson led the team with 108 yards and a touchdown on 8 receptions, while Javarius Johnson finished with 104 yards on just 4 receptions. The wideout also added a 57-yard touchdown run, which was enough to make him Auburn's leading rusher. The Tigers came out strong in the first quarter, scoring touchdowns on their first 2 possessions, while Mississippi State was held to a field goal on their first and forced a punt on their second. Auburn scored again to start the second quarter in the form of a 4-yard touchdown pass to Luke Deal. The catch would be Deal's first collegiate touchdown. The Tigers then followed it up with an acrobatic touchdown catch by Kobe Hudson to make it a 28-3 game. Mississippi State would start their 40-point run with a touchdown to end the half and make it a 28-10 game. In the third, the Mississippi defense shut out Auburn's offense while scoring back-to-back touchdowns of their own, including a 10-play, 98-yard touchdown drive. After a failed 2-point conversion, the game was 28-23, Auburn, entering the fourth quarter. Mississippi State scored 3 more touchdowns to make it 5 straight possessions, while Auburn punted on a 3-and-out and turned the ball over on downs on their first 2 possessions of the fourth. Tank Bigsby punched it in to cap off a 9-play, 90-yard drive, but it was too little too late, as after a failed onside kick leading to a Mississippi State field goal and a fumble, Mississippi State would run the clock out and end the game 43-32. The Tigers will be back in action November 20th at South Carolina. The game will kick off at 6 Central. This has been Colin Beiersdorf with Eagle Eye TV.
Mississippi State's 25-point comeback was the largest in program history for the Bulldogs. With 3 minutes and 15 seconds remaining in the second quarter, ESPN had Auburn's win probability at 98.5%. It was from that point that the Bulldogs would go on to score 6 touchdowns while holding the Auburn offense scoreless.
Both starting quarterbacks would have career days statistically on Saturday. Auburn quarterback Bo Nix had a career high in passing yards with 377, while completing 27 of his 41 passing attempts. That included 2 touchdowns. Mississippi State's quarterback Will Rogers would have an even more impressive day. Rogers tied the Mississippi State single-game passing touchdown record with 6. The Tigers' defense struggled to pressure Rogers, allowing him to complete 44 of his 55 passing attempts for 415 yards. Here's Auburn's Bo Nix following the disappointing loss.
I'm not quite sure what happened there. Felt like the entire stadium, just the life just kind of mellowed out, and the life of the stadium just kind of relaxed there for a minute, and it was hard to get some momentum back. And they did a great job of doing good on offense, defense, and special teams. They came back and made it a game, and we did do our part. We came out really hot. Really on fire, moving the ball well, scored a lot of points, and then, that's just on us for, relaxing, and we just didn't have the same intensity that we needed. You just kind of felt it, and that's never good.
Auburn's rushing game was held to a minimum on Saturday as the Bulldogs held the Tigers to just 106 total rushing yards. The leading rusher for the Tigers was Javarius Johnson, who received a swing pass from quarterback Bo Nix, but because the pass was behind the line of scrimmage, it went down as a 56-yard touchdown rush. The leading rusher out of the running back room was Tank Bigsby, who ran for 41 yards on 16 carries. Bo Nix could not get anything going with his legs either, as he he had only carried the ball twice for -3 yards.
And what was a career day for Bo Nix also became his worst nightmare. On a pass attempt in the third quarter, Nix would come down with an ankle injury, but the junior quarterback fought through the injury as long as he could in hopes of an Auburn comeback. Once the game was too far out of reach, Nix was relieved by backup quarterback TJ Finley to finish out the contest. Here's what Nix had to say about his injury post-game.
Yeah, I just kind of got rolled up on, but that's just kind of the game of football. You got to kind of every once in a while play with those kind of things, and it is what it is. Can't change it, and just got to figure out a way to make it work. Yeah, I just kind of got rolled up on, but that's just kind of the game of football. You got to kind of every once in a while play with those kind of things, and it is what it is. Can't change it, and just got to figure out a way to make it work.
Following the conclusion of the game, Nix had an MRI done on his ankle that showed he had broken it. The injury will ultimately end Nix's season after he had a successful surgery on Monday morning. Nix finishes the year with a 61% completion percentage for 2,294 yards and 11 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions.
Also out for the remainder of the season is starting kicker Anders Carlson, who tore his ACL on an onside attempt late in the Mississippi State game. This Saturday's game will be the first game since 2013 that Auburn will be without a kicker with the last name of Carlson, as Anders' brother Daniel kicked for the Tigers from 2014 through 2017 and is now the starting kicker for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Although Nix's and Carlson's seasons are over, the Tigers still have work to do with 2 regular season games remaining. Auburn will travel to Columbia, South Carolina this Saturday for a revenge match against the South Carolina Gamecocks. Last year, the Tigers were upset by the Gamecocks as Bo Nix threw 3 interceptions in the 22-30 loss for the Tigers.
It will be backup quarterback TJ Finley's first start of the season for the Tigers, but Finley is awfully familiar with the Gamecocks. The LSU transfer started his first game as a true freshman for the Bayou Bengals against South Carolina in 2020. He tossed for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 interception, posted 24 rushing yards with a rushing touchdown in the LSU's 52-24 win over the Gamecocks. Kickoff between the unranked Tigers and USC is set for 6 p.m. Central Time and will be broadcast on ESPN.
On Tuesday night, the College Playoff Committee released their updated rankings following Week 11 slate of games. The top 4 teams remain the same, with undefeated Georgia at 1, Alabama at 2, Oregon at 3, and Ohio State at 4. The biggest upsets of the week come with once undefeated Oklahoma suffering their first loss of the season against Baylor, which moved the Sooners to number 13 in the latest poll. In the SEC, Ole Miss defeated Texas A&M, which bumped the Rebels to number 12 and dropped the 3-loss Aggies to number 16.
Rounding out the top 25 is NC State at 20, Arkansas at 21, still undefeated UTSA at 22, Utah at 23, 1-loss Houston at 24, and Mississippi State moves back into the top 25 after defeating Auburn. The Tigers move out of the top 25 since week 1 of the 2021 season. When we come back, we will look at this past week for the men's and women's basketball teams, as well as soccer and volleyball. You're watching Sports Night at Auburn.
Welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn. The number 22 ranked Auburn basketball team closed their opening week of the season with a Friday night game against the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. Here's Eagle Eye's Mackenzie Collins with the story.
The 22nd ranked Auburn Tigers brought in Louisiana Monroe Warhawks to Auburn Arena, and this game did not disappoint. The Tigers went up 13-5 after a 3 from Katie Johnson and buckets from Dylan Cardwell and Wendell Green, but then succumbed to a Warhawk 8-0. The Tigers finally found momentum when Jabari Smith forced a ULM turnover. Trailing 32-26, Smith hit 2 threes in the span of a minute to pull Auburn within a possession. Free throws from Green put Auburn down by 2 at half. In just his second collegiate game, Jabari Smith had 23 points and 10 rebounds, giving him his first double-double. He was 3 of 5 from behind the arc and 6 of 8 on free throws. On the defensive side, he had 4 steals and 2 blocks. Chris Morris had a career-high 16 points, with all of his points coming from just inside the arc, and also completed all 6 of his free throws. Moore, Smith, and Johnson all scored in double digits in the second half alone. Auburn looks ahead to a week of rest until they face UCF in Tampa, Florida, next Friday, November 19th. Tip-off is set for 6 p.m. Central Time and can be seen on ESPN+. Live from Auburn Arena, I'm Mackenzie Collins, Eagle Eye TV.
It was another dominating performance by the Tigers, as well as star freshman Jabari Smith, who recorded his first double-double of the season. Smith finished with 23 points and 10 rebounds, with also 3 steals and 2 blocks.
Also in double scoring figures for the Tigers was Katie Johnson with 18 points, Chris Moore with 16, and Wendell Green with 15. The Tigers will now travel to Tampa, Florida for their first road game of the season against USF. Tip-off for the game is set for Friday at 6 p.m. Central. It will be on ESPN+.
After starting the season off with 2 losses, the Auburn women's basketball team returned to Auburn Arena to take on the Alabama State Hornets. The Tigers were still in search of their first win of the season, as well as first-year head coach Johnny Harris. Here's Eagle Eye's Michaela Kelly with the game highlights.
Auburn women's basketball celebrated their first win of the season this past Tuesday, defeating Alabama State 74-45. This game marked Coach Johnny Harris's first win at Auburn and broke the Tigers' 20-game losing streak. Junior Honesty Scott Grayson led the offense with 21 points and 10 rebounds. Kaiea White was the second leading scorer with 15 points and 7 rebounds. Auburn was out-rebounded Alabama State 51-31. The 51 total rebounds led to 12 second-chance points for Auburn. Sanaya Wells led Auburn in the assist category, with 7 assists contributing to the Tigers' 17 total assists of the night. The Tigers' defense was stout on Tuesday night as they held the Hornets 27% from the field and went on a 13-0 run in the last 3 minutes of the game. Auburn returns to action this Sunday when they head to Atlanta to take on Georgia Tech. Tip-off is set for 3 p.m. With Eagle Eye TV, this is Michaela Kelly.
With a 74-75 win, head coach Johnny Harris recorded her first win as the Tigers head coach. Players of the game were Honesty Scott Grayson, who recorded a double-double with 21 points and 10 rebounds. Kaiea White scored 15 points with 7 rebounds, and point guard Sanaya Wells scored 8 points and dished out 7 assists. The Tigers are back in action on Sunday as they travel to Atlanta to take on their first ranked matchup of the season against the 18th ranked Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Tip-off for the game will be at 3 o'clock Central and will be broadcast on the ACC network.
Auburn soccer came up short in the first round of the NCAA tournament against the in-state Sanford Bulldogs. Here's Eagle Eye's Zach Card with the coverage.
In the first round of the NCAA women's soccer tournament, the Auburn Tigers fall to the Sanford Bulldogs with a score of 2-0. The crowd was packed for both teams, and the energy was high the entire game. The Tigers come out strong, keeping possession and all the pressure on Sanford in the first half. Sanford made adjustments at halftime, though, which proved critical. Sanford scored first at the 60-minute mark with a goal from Mary Raymond. Sanford's second goal came from Taylor Yount and was assisted by Kyla Reynolds. Sanford would hold firm for the remaining 13 minutes of the game and complete the upset. This is the end of the season for Auburn, but Sanford will go on to play Duke in the next round. This has been Zach Card reporting for Eagle Eye TV.
The loss ends Auburn's season as they finished with a record of 12-7-1 overall and 5-4-1 in SEC play.
Although the Tigers would suffer a season-ending loss, the Tigers fought to the very end. Sophomore Anna Haddock totaled 7 shots and 2 that were on goal, while junior Sydney Richards recorded 2 shots with 1 being on goal.
Auburn volleyball returns to action tonight as they travel to Gainesville, Florida for a match against the 17-6 Florida Gators. The 13-11 Tigers look to close out the regular season strong as they only have 4 games remaining.
This Saturday and Sunday, the Tigers return to Auburn Arena for matches against the top team in the conference, the Kentucky Wildcats. The 2 matches will conclude Auburn's season at home, where they have an 11-5 record. The first match is Saturday at 4:30 p.m. and will be streamed on SEC Network Plus. On Sunday is Senior Day, where all the seniors will be recognized in a pre-match ceremony. After the conclusion of the ceremony, the Tigers will face Kentucky in Game 2 of the series, beginning at 1 p.m. on SEC Network Plus.
When we come back, we will look at how some Auburn alumni are making the news at the professional level. You're watching Sports Night in Auburn.
Welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn. Several Auburn alumni have made headlines at the professional level this past week, including Heisman winner and former NFL MVP Cam Newton. Newton was released by the New England Patriots before the beginning of the season as the Patriots decided that Mac Jones would be their starting quarterback. That left Newton without a job until the Carolina Panthers signed the former first overall pick, to the team following the injury of their starting quarterback, Sam Darnold.
The Panthers traveled to Glendale, Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals in the same stadium Newton won a national championship at Auburn and then his rookie debut in 2011. The Panthers worked Newton in goal line situations in which Newton would score a rushing and passing touchdown. Panthers would go on to defeat the one-loss Cardinals with a final score of 34-10.
Also on the Carolina Panthers roster is defensive tackle Derek Brown, who recorded 2 tackles and a quarterback hit in Sunday's win. Jacksonville Jaguars starting cornerback Rudy Ford recorded 4 tackles in the Jags' 23-17 loss to the Indianapolis Colts. Tampa Bay Buccaneers starting quarterback Jamel Dean recorded 5 tackles in the Bucs' loss to the Washington football team. Philadelphia Eagles punter Aaron Sipos averaged 51.3 yards with a 42.3-yard net on 3 punts in the Eagles' 30-13 win over the Denver Broncos.
Not only are former Tigers making waves in professional football, but also professional basketball. Atlanta Hawks point guard Sharif Cooper was called back up to the NBA roster from the Hawks G League affiliate, the College Park Skyhawks. In his 3rd game of action for the Hawks, Cooper scored his first NBA basket. Cooper played the final minute and 56 seconds of action and made his only shot, a transition driving layup with a minute and 33 seconds remaining in the game. The Hawks would go on to defeat the Milwaukee Bucks with a final score of 120-100.
On Monday night, Cooper took on another familiar Tiger, Chuma Okeke, when the Orlando Magic visited Atlanta. Okeke would go on to score 7 points and record 6 rebounds with 1 assist in the Magic's 129-111 loss to the Hawks. Former 5th overall pick and 2nd-year starter Isaac Okoro scored 12 points on 4 of 8 shooting with 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals in the Cavs' 98-92 loss at the hands of the Boston Celtics. After being sent to the Charlotte Hornets G League affiliate, the Greensboro Swarm, JT Thor is back on the Hornets NBA roster. Thor averaged 15 points per game, 7.8 rebounds per game, and 1 block per game in his 4 contests with the Swarm. The recall completes the 2nd G League assignment for Thor this season.
That will do it for tonight's and this semester's edition of Sports Night in Auburn. For more information on Auburn athletics, be sure to check out our website at eagleeyeauburn.com and stay up to date on all things Auburn sports on our Twitter at EETV_sports. I'm Jenny Jordan.
And I'm Harrison Tarr. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check us out next semester for more news in Auburn athletics. Good night, and War Eagle.